Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology. It's the only backpacking show where the hosts actually collect all the passport stamps in the whole world. I'm Alun, and I'm here with the ever-infected Adam.
Hell of a show this week, mate. We're going to find out what on earth you've been up to for the last week. I'm going to update you on what I've been doing. Then, of course, we've got everyone's favourite travel quiz in the middle section. It's Tripping Point, making a big return for a transport and travel special. And then at the end of the show, it's everyone's favourite section. It's Tales of a Trip, where we hear from a listener.
Crikey, a tripping point sounds like an anxiety-inducing show, if anything. But in the opening, I described you as infected, and I was, of course, projecting, because I've had a pretty problematic week with regards to the old healthcare.
I thought you might have been talking about the toenail on my right foot, but you've had your own problems your end, have you?
I have, mate, but if you've got a problem with the toenail, I can solve that for you quick as you like. I've got some great tips for how to deal with an infected toenail. I'll be sharing those in the Patreon section. It's a right travel hack that changed my life when I first discovered it. But yes, unfortunately, I have become infected on my foot as well, actually, this week.
Oh, God. Oh, it sounds awful. What are you doing? Free diving incident? Some sort of... I don't know, what did you do, step on a starfish?
Yeah, mostly starfish stepping. No, I've been surfing and sort of doing a lot of jiu-jitsu recently. There's a reef here, which is quite problematic when you're stepping in with your surfboard. Unfortunately, last week I stepped on something in that reef and it produced sort of a centimetre cut just from stepping on a rock. Produced a centimetre long cut, not very deep at all. It was healing well. I thought nothing of it. I went about my day. And I was lying on my bed here, editing an episode of Tripology, when I noticed, emanating from that already nearly healed cut, was a red line extending up towards my ankle. Now, what would you do if you looked down at your foot and saw something like that? What would your next course of action be?
A red line. So you're talking about something that's absolutely part of your skin. It's not been drawn on by a biro.
Yeah, it almost looks as if something about the size of a mouse had taken a red Sharpie and sort of very delicately just drawn from the wound to your ankle, sort of in the night whilst you were sleeping. Not with broad, heavy-handed strokes of the Sharpie, but just sort of like a little tickle with the Sharpie, very light under the skin sort of red line.
Well, two things I would have done. First of all, I would have taken a photo of it and then sent it to you and asked you what on earth was going on. Secondly, I probably would have Googled what the problem was and then proceeded to contact my family and tell them that unfortunately I've only got a couple of months to live.
Yeah, well, I mean, messaging me wouldn't have been that helpful in this case, because when I saw it, I thought, that's a bit unusual. A red line? What does it mean? What prophecy is this written on my foot? I tried trying to decode it. What does this line mean? What does it say about me? Does it mean that I'm some sort of special human being? But in actual fact, upon a Googling, I learned that red line is a telltale sign of lymphangitis.
Oh, God. I mean, it sounds serious.
Mate, the worst thing you can hear as a man in his 30s lying on a bed editing a podcast is that there's something wrong with your lymphs.
Yeah, God. Well, without knowing really what that is, but it's sounding pretty serious, the panic definitely would have set in. Did you already have an idea of what it was before you saw the big long word with all the vowels in it?
When you see a word like that basically means that there's a problem with your lymph system, you do jump to conclusions and think, oh, that can't be good. But I didn't know exactly what it was, so let me tell you what I learned. Basically, I stepped on this rock, I had a cut, some bacteria got into that cut, and then proceeded to infect my blood, and it was heading, that infection, up towards my lymphatic system. And that was what that red line was. That was the infection travelling through my blood vessels up towards the lymphatic system. Now, why is that a problem? It's a problem because when an infection reaches your lymphatic system, it can use that system to hijack all sorts of other systems within your body and can trigger quite a nasty thing called sepsis.
Oh my God. I don't say this often, especially if it's about you, but I'm glad this happened to you and not me, because I would have been doing my pieces. I'm really, really bad when this sort of stuff happens. Did you keep a cool head?
Well, it's one of those things where you Google it and sort of just to find out what it was. And Google and ChatGPT and Gemini and all those AI products basically were unanimous in saying, look, if there's a red line coming from a wound on your foot, it's not a question of go to sleep and see how it is in the morning. It's a question of waking up in the morning might be too late. Sepsis can happen very quickly. When things go bad with lymphangitis, they go bad very, very quickly. The infection is in your blood. You need to have gone to an ER yesterday.
Oh my God. This stuff scares me so much, mate, because I don't know if I would have done anything about it. It's awful, really.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought as well. I really thought, it's a good fucking job I Googled.
Yeah.
Because I honestly thought, oh, that's a cute red line.
My God. Okay, so what'd you do? You're on your way to the hospital or what?
Yeah, it was pouring down with rain at the time. So I was like one of those miserable things where you think, oh, God, the last thing I want to do, it's late at night. It's like 9 p.m. That's late at night, if you mean. And it was pouring down with rain, 9 p.m. The last thing I wanted to do was get on a motorcycle and drive into town and go to the ER. But you really have no choice, right? So I found a 24-hour medical clinic. There's like one or two on the whole island, and it just so happens to be 15 minutes away from me, so that was convenient. I went there. Basically, they had to give me tetanus shots in both arms because they had to clean the wound. They gave me an antibiotic cream, and in order to clear the lymphangitis, 4 pills a day for 7 days worth of antibiotics. That is like a strong dose of the antibiotics. They've just got to make sure that shit is not in your system anymore.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's awful. I mean, I can't believe this is the first time I'm hearing it. Why the hell didn't you tell me that you were going through this? That sounds bloody serious, mate.
Well, you know me, I don't like to fuss, but do you ever have that thing when you go, I find this in a medical setting quite often, because now we're living in this age of Google where people can really inform themselves online. And, it must be quite annoying for doctors when people come in with a self-diagnosis, because I went into the ER and I was like, oh, I've got lymphangitis. Can I please see a doctor?
Mm.
And by the time the doctor came to see me, she was like, oh, and what's the problem? I was like, it's lymphangitis. She was like, oh, well, how do you know it's lymphangitis? And in that situation, do you just fess up and go like, oh, well, I had a Google and I think it looks like lymphangitis? I always get a bit, I don't know what to say. So I went, it's a bit of a hobby of mine to dabble in medicine. I didn't know what to say. And she was like, oh, but you're not a doctor. And I was like, no. But, I once went on a date with a doctor. Oh, some of my best friends are doctors. It's really awkward situations created.
No, I think what I would have done is maybe not given them anywhere to hide in some sort of manipulation tactic. I would have said, look, I'll be honest, I've Googled it and I think it's lymphangitis. If you're telling me it's not and it turns out to be, then on your head be it. Let's just treat it as if it is the worst possible thing and then work backwards instead of think about what it could be and then make our way through process of elimination to the worst thing.
Yeah, that'd probably be a smart idea. I mean, in the end, they really did a holistic treatment. They shot me up with 2 types of tetanus, the tetanus for protecting you against tetanus in the future and the tetanus for making sure you don't have tetanus right now. The antibiotics themselves made me so damn tired and just fatigued. I still managed to go to jiu-jitsu and do all the surfing and all that stuff, but it was really a knackering experience.
God. How did the editing go on the episode?
Oh, good. Yeah, good. But, so far, 100% of the people that have tried to edit that specific episode of Tropology have come down with lymphangitis whilst doing so. So it's a high-risk episode.
Awful, mate, awful. And then does the wound heal quicker because of the amount of drugs that you've consumed or ingested?
The crazy thing about this story is that the wound was pretty much already healed and now is still nearly already healed. Like it was just the wound was healing normally and it was fine. It was just that red line that I think would have gone under most people's radars. But I remembered actually, once I saw the word lymphangitis, I remember watching a documentary when I was a kid about someone who got toxic shock from an infection and ended up losing both their arms and both their legs overnight pretty much because of toxic shock syndrome. So it really is one of those things that looks not like it should be a huge problem, but left just, we'll see how it goes, could become a real problem really, really quickly. So I'm glad I had the Google and the internet to bail me out of what could be a terrifying situation.
If in doubt, check it out and make sure your bloody travel insurance covers it. Many of us go travelling to find ourselves, but what does that really mean?
Yeah, a lot of us go travelling searching for meaning, and while you certainly can find some answers climbing up a mountain or snorkeling in a beautiful reef, sometimes we need some help to even ask the right questions. That's why we've teamed up with BetterHelp in a paid partnership that offers you the chance to try therapy.
You know what it's like, Alan. Moving countries, time zones, jumping around from hostel to hostel, having no schedule. These are reasons travellers often rule out therapy. I've been using the service for 6 months and I've travelled a lot during that time. Organising therapy sessions using the online platform couldn't be easier. I've been working with my therapist on some deep-rooted issues and I'm now in a much happier place.
Yeah, starting therapy with BetterHelp literally couldn't be easier. You simply fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist as soon as possible. It's also easy to switch therapists at any time with no extra cost. BetterHelp strives to pair you with a therapist that's right for you.
With thousands of positive reviews, us included, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/Tripology podcast and get 10% off your first month of therapy.
There we are, it's time for the most anxiety-riddled part of the show for me. Last time we played this game, I nearly lost my passport and had to backpack all the way back home to Manchester in what can only be described as a horrible twist of fate. We are, of course, speaking of everyone's favourite travel quiz. It's Tripping Point.
Tripping Point. Alan, it's everyone's favourite travel quiz. It is, of course, Tripping Point, but as you mentioned, it does give you a lot of anxiety. I would imagine it gave you more anxiety in the last episode, in the last edition of Tripping Point, because the stakes were so bloody high. So what I would like to do is reduce the stakes somewhat, but still make them pretty stakey.
I'm interested.
How do you want to play this one? I know you've been indulging in the tuna over in Siargao. If you get... I think you might even get every question right, mate.
Oh, don't say things like that.
Is it possible to buy a whole tuna?
Yeah.
Could you do that over in Siargao?
Yeah, it will cost about...
Can I afford one?
I reckon a whole tuna would cost about 3,000 pesos.
Which is what in a currency that we understand?
If you have to ask, then you can't afford it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to agree to buy you a whole tuna and you can decide to divide that up and share it with You can have your own fiesta. Why don't you have your own fiesta and you can invite the neighbourhood for some tuna?
Okay, so I'm playing for a whole yellowfin, baby.
Here we go. Are you ready for the question? This is a transport edition, so all of the questions are about ways in which you can traverse this wonderful planet. Are you ready?
Yeah, I was born ready and I've continued to be ready ever since that day.
Okay, you haven't got any red lines on your ankles that are making their way up your leg. Let's go.
I'm red line free.
In the late 19th century, rickshaws became a popular form of transportation across Asia. But where was the rickshaw as we know it today widely believed to have been invented all the way back in 1869? Is it A, France? Is it B, Japan? Is it C, the United States? Or is it D, Singapore?
Oh, baby, baby. As we know it today, the rickshaw. I was thinking it was going to be Asian when you asked the question, and I'm going to have to stick with that feeling from the off. So, yeah, I'm going to go Singapore.
Mate, you're off to a bad start. It's B, Japan. I'm ever so sorry.
Really? Well, it was either Singapore or Japan, I suppose.
Well, this will be an interesting little fun fact for you, mate. Rickshaws were independently invented in Japan circa 1869 after the lifting of a ban on wheeled vehicles from the Tokugawa period, 1603 to 1868. How crazy is that, a ban on wheeled vehicles? Rickshaw originates from the Japanese word jin-ricksha, which means human, jin, which is human. So if you say Ingresu jin des, that means I am an English person. And then riki, which is power or force, and then sha, which is vehicle. So it literally translates to human-powered vehicle. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
There we go. And yeah, you win some, you lose some.
So you're down to 3/4 of a tuna. Here we go. Number 2. The Loganair flight between Westray and Papa Westray in Scotland is the world's shortest scheduled passenger flight. But how long is it? A, 18 minutes. B, 12 minutes. C, 6 minutes, or D, just 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, well, that one's impossible. I think it's going to be, I reckon 12 minutes, mate.
I can't believe it, mate. You're wrong again. We're down to half a tuna. Get this.
What's the answer?
The scheduled time for that flight, the allotted time, is 1.5 minutes.
That's impossible. That is impossible.
It is absolutely amazing. The fastest time ever recorded for that route is 53 seconds, which was registered by a pilot called Stuart Linklater, who flew the route over 12,000 times before retiring back in 2013. I mean, when people take short flights and they say it was just up and down, that's not even up, is it?
That's not long enough to take off.
It's just the end of the runway. That's so funny. Maybe the other island that it's going to, Papua West Australia, is just slightly lower down in terms of elevation. It just goes off the end onto the other runway.
Honestly, if you're listening to this episode now and you've got both of these questions right so far, can you pause the show and send us an email or a message on Instagram at Tropology Podcast? Because I think you're lying.
That's so funny. If you are playing at home, do play at home. This is great. Then, yeah, let us know that you have been doing so. Here we go. This one is right up your street, mate. Number 3. Vietnam is synonymous with motorbikes and scooters, but approximately what percentage share of road vehicles do they represent? A, 50%, B, 65%, C, 75%, or D, 95%?
I'm going to go big, man. This is just Vietnam.
Yep, so it's only about Vietnam, the percentage share of road vehicles that is held by motorbikes and scooters.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember seeing a single car in my whole time in Vietnam. There's maybe a few. I reckon it's one of those things that sounds ridiculous if you get it wrong, but I just think they're so ubiquitous. I mean, am I saying that for every 100 vehicles in Vietnam, only 5 of them aren't? Are we talking about passenger vehicles? Would like trucks and lorries count?
Yeah, all road traffic.
Okay, well, 95%.
Yeah, you're right. Can you even believe it? The answer is 95%. As of 2024, there are approximately 77 million registered motorbikes in Vietnam. With a population of around 100 million people, that means that 3 in 4 people ride one.
That's really taking into account like moving goods between cities and things.
Yeah, there are just so many.
I guess there's just so many people on bikes.
Just very quickly, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen on the back of a bike?
I saw once a man with sort of 3 daughters, and the back one was carrying a whole sort of a box with 10 chickens inside.
God, yeah, I've seen a fair few animals as well. I've seen whole sort of chicken coops. I've seen upside down pigs that have had their legs tied together. I've seen a fridge freezer. I've even seen another motorbike on the back of a scooter being carried along sideways. So, I mean, they're inventive, if nothing else. You got to hats off to them, the Vietnamese. They love a scooter.
I once fell asleep on the back of a motorcycle in Vietnam. So for someone looking at that, they would have seen the weirdest thing they've ever seen on a motorbike was a sleeping white guy like just nodding off and nearly falling into the road.
Dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Here we go. Number 4. The Trans-Siberian is the longest single-track railway line in the world. If you were to travel its full route from Moscow to Vladivostok without stopping, how long would the journey take? A, 2 days. B, 3 days. C, 5 days. Or D, 7 days, 1 full week.
That's interesting. I think Vladivostok's had more mentions on this podcast than any other podcast in the world. I think Vladivostok is sort of our sister town, basically. Okay, how long would it take the whole Trans-Siberian if it didn't stop at all, right?
Yeah, so the train journey. Now, I am speaking from experience, obviously. You can buy a ticket from Moscow to Vladivostok and not get off the train, okay? You can't get tickets, or you couldn't, back when I did it back in 2014, you couldn't get tickets that was like a hop-on, hop-off type thing. If you want to go to Vladivostok, you buy a Moscow to Vladivostok ticket and you do it in one hit. And that is one single railway line that goes all the way.
Okay, I'm going to take a risk here, Adam, because my intuition tells me 5 days, but this has been a quiz of extremes. Mm-hmm. The answer to the flight question was the shortest flight. The answer to the Vietnamese question was the biggest number. The answer to the rickshaw question was the most Asian place. I think when you were making this quiz, you were in a very extreme mindset, and for that reason, I think it's the longest time, 7 days.
You can't dispute the logic. He's got it right. It's 7 days, 1 week. It was about 6.5 when I did it, but let's round it up. Well done.
I have read you like a little tripological book, my friend, and for that reason, I'm going to find a way to weasel a whole tuna out of you.
Yeah, the full journey covers about 9,300 kilometres. It's absolutely gigantic. Little bonus question for you, mate,
Okay.
for this one. The total journey, you try and get a couple of scales of tuna back on the plate. The total journey, travelling either east to west or vice versa, crosses how many time zones?
No multiple choice.
No, it's a bonus question. So you just got to think about the most extreme number that it could possibly be and say that.
10.
Oh, unlucky. It's 8.
Oh.
It's 8, but that is a lot of time zones.
You led me astray by saying most extreme. I was on 8 and then you said extreme and I added a couple of time zones for each syllable of that word.
Damn. Maybe I'll include some of the tuna head or something. Just a little consolation. The time is GMT +3 in Moscow and ends at GMT +10 in Vladivostok. Absolutely mental, honestly.
Okay. Right. Next question. I'm ready to go.
Here it is. It's the last one for you, mate. Number 5. Try and bag as much tuna as you can. The famous Mongol Rally returned in 2024.
You can't say that.
After lying dormant since 2019. We don't need to go into why that was. Participants are challenged to drive thousands of miles from Europe to now Kazakhstan in tiny, often unsuitable cars. Which of the following rules make the rally all the more challenging? Is it A, you must complete the rally without using any maps or GPS? Is it B, the cars must have a maximum engine size of 1.3 litres? Or is it C, only vehicles older than 50 years are allowed to compete?
I have no idea, Adam. I've never heard of the Mongol Rally.
Have you not? That crazy car race that goes all the way sort of from the UK all the way across Europe and all the stans and ends up in Mongolia, now Kazakhstan, because of some geopolitical issues.
The one with really old cars and no maps.
Then both of those would be right, wouldn't they? No, so it's an amazing thing. If you haven't heard of the Mongol Rally, a good friend of ours, definitely a good friend of mine, I know him slightly better than you do, but you met him loads of times. He did that when he was 18 with a few of his friends, and my God, has he got some amazing stories from that trip. So,
yeah, I certainly wouldn't consider him a friend.
What do you think it is, mate? What's your final answer?
Oh, I'm going to go with the engine size of the car one, Adam, the 1.3 litres, on the grounds that I found that number a little bit suspiciously, oddly specific.
You're totally right. That is the answer. They do actually say if you can keep the engine size to about a litre, that'd be great. But if you really are, and this is sort of the words on their website, if you don't think you can cope, if you need a bigger engine, we will allow an absolute maximum of 1.3 if you're completely useless and you're unable to make it all the way with a tiny engine.
Well, I must confess, I really find Tripping Point much easier if I sort of play against you as opposed to try and answer the questions.
I do have amazing fun putting these together. I do like it. And of course, they're easy for me because I know the answer because I wrote the questions. But you always do such a good job. So maybe, I'll tell you what, mate, 3,000 pesos doesn't sound like that much. I'd buy you a whole bloody tuna and you invite the neighbourhood round for a big old knees up.
Just on this, on the last episode of Tripping Point, we did an Instagram post where we made a poll saying, like, did you get the question right? And an alarming number of people said that they did. And the question... There's a lot of people that claim to know a lot about travel just off the bat. People are like, oh, you got fooled by the whole France Great Wall debacle. But me, I was listening to the show and I knew the answer immediately. Did you? That's a question I have. Anyway.
The pressure's not on them, is it? There's not a tuna on the line. That's a fishing joke.
Okay, mate, well, a beautiful tripping point, but do you know what I'm really craving? It's my favourite time of the show. It's when we dash off to tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip and hear one of our listeners' greatest travel stories. They've got 3 minutes to send us the most beautiful memory, the sexiest tale, the most daring adventure that they've ever had whilst on the road. One of our listeners has sent one in, and we're going to listen to it right now.
Hello, Alun and Adam. I'm on my 20th take. Let's see if I can get it under 3 minutes. So, I was teaching English in Vietnam. I managed to find a job in 4 hours, which was impressive. The only assets I had to my name was the fact that I was English. I could speak English, and I had done a TEFL course. I'd never taught English in my life. This is a lesson about knowing what you're good at and maybe finding out what you're not so good at. I had to cover for a friend who was a professional English teacher and had been doing it for some years in Vietnam. And I was left with the lesson planning and then obviously delivering the lesson. So I thought, it's easy, it's fine. Find a couple of videos, get a couple of images online and I print some stuff off, watch a couple of YouTube videos, whatever. Easy. The kids were, I think, age 5 to 9. And I remember getting in there to the lesson. And for some reason, the parents were there too. And the supply teacher. So I was sort of just being put on a pedestal and kind of just being looked at and been observed, if you like, to see what my teaching qualities were like. I'd never taught before. I think I did one lesson before that, which was terrible. So I'd found a song beforehand and I thought, right, let's warm them up with a song because that's all I've got right now. Now, this is a lesson to anybody who's planning a lesson in English. Make sure you watch the video all the way through and make sure that it's attainable for the level of which you're trying to teach. I think they were anywhere from the ages of 5 to 9. I couldn't be sure. They were very young, very small. Anyway, so the first part of the song is nice and easy. It's about different vehicles in a construction site. The first one it went a bit like this. I see a lorry. And then I'd get them to say, I see a lorry, which they managed, lorry's not too hard. Next one, I see a digger, I see a digger. Yeah, great, okay, they got that. Now, at this point, I'd not actually watched much further than that, so I didn't know what was coming next. And the next word, to be honest with you, I would have struggled teaching people whose native language is English anyway. The next word was, I see an excavator, I see an excavator. And this is where it all went Pete-tong. All the kids suddenly trying to repeat after me, I see an excavator. And it just didn't work. I had no backup plan. All the teachers' parents, the parents were looking at me, the teacher was looking at me. I just had to try and improvise. So I think I just kind of skipped through the song very quickly and was like, right, to the next word. And that's why you should always, always plan a lesson before doing it. Don't try and blag these things, even if you think you can do it just because you speak the language. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sending the story in. I love that one. That resonated with me on multiple levels, both as someone who has tried to teach English as a second language throughout Asia and Africa, and I've also been a music teacher, a ukulele teacher, so I've made up a lot of little songs for little kids. Mate, any experience with TEFL, with language teaching, anything like that for you?
No, actually, it's a massive blind spot in my travel history, and it's something that I really wish I had done. I would say to lots of younger travellers out there, if you do want to travel, or at least work in an industry that allows you to travel and facilitates that travel, teaching English is definitely a great one to go into. And I thought about it too late, I think. Maybe I'm a bit too long in the tooth. I don't know whether I'd be a good teacher or not. What do you reckon?
I reckon I think you'd be good at teaching certain things. You're good at teaching me things that I don't know about when you have like additional expertise.
What's that? Nothing.
Well, you've taught me a few things about wine. I can tell if a wine's corked now, thanks to you. But it is a popular thing, isn't it, in the travel community, doing TEFL, teaching, often without any teaching expertise at all. People throw themselves into teaching. My very first job traveling, I've been traveling for... my first thing I ever did when I went traveling was teach in a little language school in China. After a month of traveling, I was teaching in this little Vietnamese school. And it's mad, actually, to think back on being a 21-year-old kid who doesn't know anything about anything. And I was just trying to teach these kids. And I didn't know the first thing about teaching, so I just have all these little Vietnamese faces staring back at me. One lesson, I tried to teach them about first, second, and third person pronouns.
Blimey.
And I explained it as me. And of course, they were like 5-year-old Vietnamese children. The teacher came to me afterwards and said, I think maybe you'd have a better time teaching the adult class, Alan. I'm like, oh yeah, is that because I tried to teach people who were too young to understand those pronouns in their native language about them in English. Is that why you think I should be fired from this role? So I do empathise with the whole debacle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't envy Danny. I can imagine that's an incredibly difficult position to be in when you've got all the eyes on you. I don't, why on earth the parents were there, why they chose to be there for his lesson as well. All came undone bloody quickly, mate. I do regret not teaching English, and you know, I would implore anyone to, I guess, take the plunge, because we've been dealt an incredible hand, haven't we? Being native English speakers, you do realise how lucky you are. There are lots of countries that hold it in high regard, and just because you are a native English speaker will potentially give you a job without any experience. Obviously, in Danny's case, he probably wished he had a little bit more.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing, but it is quite stressful as well. You know, speaking on the parents being there and observing the lesson, I recall another time when I was trying to teach guitar in Australia, and I had no idea about how to play guitar, really. I just knew that not many people wanted bass guitar lessons, but lots of people wanted guitar lessons. So I quickly tried to learn how to play the guitar and stayed one lesson ahead of the kids that I was teaching at all times. But one day, a parent came in with their child, and the child said, "Oh, how do I play that D minor chord?" And I didn't know how to play a D minor chord. I looked at him and then looked at his mother and said, "You know, it's really best when you're learning to know from the shape of the diagram in the book how to create that shape on the fretboard yourself. So let's try and do that together now." So look, here we go, position 1. And I just managed to blag my way through it, just using, charisma, really.
Yeah, well, you also do have musical ability, because you've come up with a little song like play D minor, because I'm going to now go to bed thinking about lorries and excavators.
Yeah, very, very catchy that, wasn't it? Excavator. You come up with stuff like that all the time. I would recommend, if you're ever in a context where you're teaching kids language, a second language now, a good game is Slap the Board. I used to play it all the time with the Vietnamese kids and the Chinese kids. What you do is you write a bunch of random simple words all over a whiteboard. You might do can or spade or trigonometry, and then you say those words, and the kids have to race another kid to touch the word as fast as they can. They go absolutely nuts for it. They much prefer that to excavators and diggers and all that shit.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like absolute carnage. I'm not sure the parents would have been too pleased with that one either, mate.
It's a minefield, Adam, but it's a minefield that if you want to earn some extra cash whilst travelling, or indeed just to use your teaching services like I did in exchange for a place to stay and a few meals, you've got to get to grips with the minefield and learn to navigate it expertly. It's a cool thing. Thank you very much for sending that story in. If you have a crazy workaway story, a teaching English story, or something that you did that you shouldn't really have been doing whilst on the road travelling, just go to tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip, because we want to hear all about it. 3 minutes, your greatest travel story. But right now, we're going to tiptoe over to the Patreon section, where we do a lost and found bit behind the theme music, where we get all naughty and crazy here on the podcast.
Lost and Found section on patreon.com/Tripology Podcast. Don't make the same mistake that Danny did and watch the YouTube video all the way to the end. We'll see you there.
Bye.